The wind cut through the empty streets like a knife. It was the kind of cold that hurt your bones, the kind that made people walk faster and pull their coats tighter. Most folks didn't even look up as they rushed past, too focused on getting somewhere warm. But there she was, sitting under the faded green awning of a closed bookstore. A girl, maybe 17 or 18, with tangled dark hair and clothes that had seen better days. Her jacket was too thin for this weather, and her sneakers had holes that let the cold seep in. She sat cross-legged on a flattened cardboard box hunched over something in her lap. She was drawing. Her fingers were red from the cold, almost purple at the tips. Every few seconds she'd stop and blow on them, trying to bring some feeling back. Then she'd pick up her pencil again and keep going. The pencil was so short she could barely hold it, worn down to almost nothing. But she held it like it was made of gold. What was she drawing? The street in front of her. The old brick buildings with their rusty fire escapes, the bare trees that lined the sidewalk, their branches reaching up like skeleton hands, a pigeon pecking at something near a trash can. She was drawing the world that most people tried not to see. People walked by without stopping. A woman in a business suit talking loudly on her phone. A couple holding hands laughing about something. A man with grocery bags moving quickly toward home. To them she was invisible. Just part of the scenery, like the cracked sidewalk or the graffiti on the walls. But she kept drawing. It was the only thing that made sense anymore. Her name was Riley, though nobody had asked her name in weeks. 3 months ago, she'd turned 18 while living in her last foster home. 3 months ago, she'd been told it was time to leave, time to make it on her own. They'd given her a trash bag for her clothes and wished her good luck. Just like that, she was out. She'd tried at first. Really tried. She'd stayed at a friend's place for a week until the friend's mom said she had to go. She'd slept on a few couches, stayed at a youth shelter when she could get a bed. She'd looked for work, but nobody wanted to hire someone with no address, no phone, no references. The world required things she didn't have, so the streets became home. The bookstore awning became her spot during the day. At night, she moved to different places, always looking for somewhere safe, somewhere hidden. She'd learned quickly that being young and alone made you a target. She'd learned to trust no one. The only thing she'd managed to keep through it all was her sketchbook and a few pencils. They'd been a gift from her middle school art teacher years ago. Mrs. Patterson, the only person who'd ever told her she was good at something. The sketchbook was falling apart now, held together with tape and hope. But it was hers. Drawing was the only time she forgot about being hungry. The only time she forgot about the cold seeping into her bones. The only time she felt like she was more than just a problem, more than just someone people crossed the street to avoid. She'd filled page after page with sketches, faces of people she saw, buildings and bridges, dogs and birds. Sometimes she drew from memory, pictures of things she'd seen in better times, a kitchen table with breakfast on it, a warm bed with clean sheets, a door with a key that was hers. A gust of wind flipped the pages of her sketchbook. She grabbed it quickly, holding it close to her chest. Her hands were shaking now, and not just from the cold. She was exhausted. She hadn't slept well in days. The shelter had been full, and she'd spent the night huddled in a subway station until the security guard kicked her out. She tried to focus on her drawing again, but the lines were getting messy. Her hand wouldn't stay steady. She blinked hard, trying to clear her vision. Everything felt fuzzy around the edges. A coffee shop across the street started to fill with the afternoon crowd. Through the big windows, she could see people sitting at tables, holding steaming cups, typing on laptops. They looked so normal, so comfortable, like they'd never had to wonder where they'd sleep or when they'd eat next. Riley's stomach growled, loud enough that she heard it over the traffic noise. When was the last time she'd eaten? Yesterday morning? Someone had left half a sandwich on a bench in the park. Before that? She couldn't remember, but she had 73 cents in her pocket. She'd been counting it all day. Not enough for anything real. Maybe she could get a small coffee tomorrow if she saved it. Hot liquid, something to warm her insides. That would be nice. She turned to a fresh page in her sketchbook. This one would be different. This one would be for her. She started drawing a house. Not a real house, but the kind she'd always imagined. A small place with a red door, windows with curtains, a porch where you could sit and watch the world go by, smoke coming from a chimney. She added a tree in the yard full of leaves, even though all the real trees around her were bare. In the window of her imaginary house, she drew a light on. Someone was home. Someone was warm and safe inside. Her eyes stung, but she refused to cry. Crying didn't help anything. She'd learned that a long time ago. The sun was starting to set, turning the sky orange and pink, beautiful colors that made everything look softer for a moment. Riley looked up to see it, really see it. Then she looked back down at her drawing. She didn't notice the man who had stopped on the opposite side of the street. Didn't see him watching her, his briefcase in one hand, his phone in the other. Didn't know that he'd been walking the same route for years and had never really looked at the people he passed. But today something made him look. Maybe it was the way she hunched over her work with such focus. Maybe it was the determination in someone so young sitting in the freezing cold. Maybe it was just the right moment at the right time. He stood there for a long minute watching her draw. Then he put his phone in his pocket and started walking toward her. Riley was too focused on her sketch to notice him coming. She was adding details to her imaginary house, making it more real with every line. In her mind, she was already there, already home. Riley felt a shadow fall across her sketchbook before she heard the voice. "Excuse me." Her head snapped up and her whole body tensed. This was it. Someone was going to tell her to move along. Maybe call the cops. It happened at least once a week. She was always too young, too dirty, too in the way for someone. But the man standing in front of her didn't look angry. He was maybe 40-something, wearing a nice coat and carrying a leather briefcase. His shoes were polished. He looked like someone important, someone with places to be. Exactly the kind of person who usually pretended she didn't exist. "I'm leaving," Riley said quickly, starting to gather her things. "I wasn't causing any trouble, I swear." "Wait," the man said, holding up his hand. "That's not why I stopped. I saw you drawing and I was curious. Would you mind if I looked at your work?" Riley froze. Nobody ever asked to see her drawings. Nobody cared about stuff like that. This had to be some kind of trick. Why? She asked, her voice sharp with suspicion. The man seemed to think about it for a moment. "I work with designs every day," he said. "Buildings, structures, that sort of thing. I noticed the way you were sketching that building across the street. The perspective looked really good. I wanted to see more." Riley's grip tightened on her sketchbook. It was the only thing she owned that mattered. What if he tried to take it? What if this was just some weird game people with money played, pretending to care before they walked away laughing? But there was something in his face that made her hesitate. He didn't have that look people usually had when they saw her. That mixture of pity and disgust. He just looked interested. "Fine," she said slowly, "but I'm holding it." She opened the sketchbook, flipping to a page near the middle. It was a drawing of the downtown skyline she'd done a few weeks ago, back when the weather was just starting to turn cold. She'd spent hours on it, getting every window right, every shadow exactly where it needed to be. The man leaned in to look and his eyebrows went up. He didn't say anything for a long moment, just studied the drawing. Then he looked at her, really looked at her like he was seeing her for the first time. "Can I see more?" he asked quietly. Riley flipped through the pages. A woman feeding pigeons in the park. The old church on 5th Street with its crumbling steps. A portrait of a man who played guitar on the corner. Page after page of the city and its people, all captured in pencil strokes that were surprisingly confident despite her shaking hands. "These are incredible," the man said, and he sounded like he meant it. "How long have you been drawing?" "Since I was a kid," Riley answered, still wary. "Had a teacher who said I was good at it. Gave me the sketchbook when I was in 8th grade. That was a good teacher," he said. He paused, seeming to choose his words carefully. "How long have you been out here? On the streets?" There it was. The question she'd been waiting for. Riley's jaw tightened. "That's none of your business." "You're right," he said. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to pry." He stood up straight, adjusting his briefcase. Riley thought he was about to leave, but instead he said, "Have you eaten today?" "I'm fine," Riley lied automatically. "There's a diner around the corner," he continued, ignoring her answer. "Best pancakes in the city. I was about to grab an early dinner. Would you join me?" My treat. Every instinct Riley had screamed at her to say no. You didn't go anywhere with strangers. You didn't trust people who offered help. There was always a catch, always, but she was so hungry. Her stomach felt like it was eating itself from the inside. And something about this guy seemed different. Maybe she was being stupid. Maybe this was a terrible idea. But what did she have to lose that she hadn't already lost? The diner's public, right? She asked. Lots of people around? Corner of 5th and Main, he said. Big windows, always crowded. You can sit where you can see the door if that makes you feel safer. She studied his face for another long moment, then nodded slowly. Okay, but I'm watching you. Fair enough, he said with a small smile. I'm Daniel, by the way. Riley, she said. Then immediately wondered if she should have given a fake name. They walked to the diner in silence, Riley keeping a few steps behind him, ready to run if she needed to. True to his word, the place was busy, filled with the dinner crowd. The warmth hit her as soon as they walked in, and she almost gasped. She couldn't remember the last time she'd been somewhere this warm. They sat in a booth by the window just like he'd promised. Riley positioned herself where she could see both the door and the street outside. Old habits. A waitress came over with menus, giving Riley a look she'd seen 1,000 times before. The "you don't belong here" look. But Daniel either didn't notice or didn't care. Order whatever you want, he said, handing her a menu. Riley's hands were shaking as she opened it. Everything looked amazing. Everything looked impossible. She tried to find the cheapest thing, not wanting to take advantage, but Daniel interrupted her thoughts. The pancakes really are great, he said, but the burger and fries are my weakness. And their hot chocolate is perfect for a day like today. Riley's resolve crumbled. Can I really get the pancakes? And the hot chocolate? Get both if you want, Daniel said. Get whatever sounds good. When the waitress came back, Riley ordered pancakes, eggs, bacon, and hot chocolate. She half expected Daniel to change his mind, to say she was being greedy, but he just ordered a burger and coffee, then handed back the menus. So, Daniel said once the waitress left, tell me about your art. Who taught you, besides that 8th grade teacher? Nobody really, Riley said, wrapping her cold hands around the water glass the waitress had brought. I just practiced a lot. Watched some videos online when I had access to the library computers. Drew everything I could. You have natural talent, Daniel said, the kind most people study for years to develop. That perspective work. The way you capture light and shadow, it's not something you can just learn from videos. Riley didn't know what to say to that. Compliments made her uncomfortable. They usually came with strings attached. The food arrived faster than she expected. The stack of pancakes was bigger than her head, steam rising off them. The bacon was crispy and perfect. The eggs were exactly right, and the hot chocolate had whipped cream on top. Riley tried to eat slowly, tried to have some dignity, but she was so hungry that she gave up after the first bite and just ate. Really ate. Daniel didn't watch her or make comments. He just ate his own food and occasionally looked out the window at the darkening street. I run an architecture firm, Daniel said after a while. We design buildings, help plan developments, that sort of thing. We're always looking for people who can sketch, who understand spatial relationships and perspective. Riley stopped chewing. Why are you telling me this? Because, Daniel said, meeting her eyes. I think you could work for us. The bite of pancake felt like cement in her mouth. She forced herself to swallow. You're joking. I'm not, he said seriously. You'd need to learn some specific technical skills, sure. Computer programs, proper drafting techniques. But the foundation is there. The raw ability is there. That's the hard part, the part you can't really teach. I'm homeless, Riley said bluntly. I don't have an address. I don't have a phone. I barely have clothes. Nobody's going to hire me. What if, Daniel said slowly, we figured out those other things? What if there was a way to get you stable first, get you what you need, and then bring you on? Riley set down her fork. This was too much. This was the kind of thing that didn't happen to people like her. Why would you do that? You don't even know me. Daniel was quiet for a moment, stirring his coffee. When I was 19, he said finally, I was sleeping in my car and washing up in gas station bathrooms. I was working 3 jobs and barely scraping by. Someone gave me a chance when I had nothing. Paid for me to take some classes, helped me get on my feet. Changed my whole life. He looked up at her. I'm not a saint, Riley. I'm not trying to save anyone. But you have something real, something valuable, and everyone deserves a shot. Riley felt something crack open inside her chest. She'd built so many walls to survive out here, and this stranger was somehow getting through them with just simple honesty. What would I have to do? She asked, her voice barely a whisper. First, Daniel said, finish your dinner. Then we'll talk about next steps. The next morning, Riley stood outside a brick building with a small sign that read, Women's Safe Haven. Daniel had written the address on a napkin the night before, along with a name to ask for. Her backpack felt heavy on her shoulders. Even though it held almost nothing, she'd barely slept, spending the night replaying their conversation over and over. Was this real? Or would she show up and find out it was all some kind of joke? Rich people did that sometimes, she'd heard. Made promises they never kept just to feel good about themselves, but she was here anyway. Because what choice did she have? The woman at the front desk looked up when Riley walked in. "Can I help you?" "I'm supposed to ask for Karen," Riley said quietly. "Daniel called yesterday." The woman's face softened. "Oh yes, come on in, honey. Karen's been waiting for you." Karen turned out to be a woman in her 50s with kind eyes and a no-nonsense attitude. She took Riley to a small office and gestured for her to sit down. "Daniel told me a bit about your situation," Karen said. "He's helped us place several young women over the years. Good man. Doesn't make promises he can't keep." Riley nodded, still not quite believing any of this was happening. "Here's what we can offer," Karen continued. "We have a bed available in our transitional housing program. You'd have your own room, shared bathroom, and kitchen. You'd be expected to follow house rules, contribute to chores, and work toward your goals. We can help you get an ID, a phone, appropriate clothes for work. There's no time limit, but the average stay is about 6 months. "How much does it cost?" Riley asked, because nothing was ever free. "It's funded by donations and grants," Karen said. "No cost to you. The only thing we ask is that you're serious about moving forward. We have limited space, and we want to help people who are ready to help themselves." Riley felt her throat tighten. "I'm ready," she said. "I've been ready," Karen smiled. "Then let's get you settled in." The room was small. Tiny, really. Just a bed, a desk, a closet, and a window that looked out onto a parking lot. But it was hers. The door had a lock. The bed had clean sheets. There was heat coming from a radiator in the corner. Riley sat on the edge of the bed and started to cry. She couldn't help it. 3 months of holding everything together just broke apart all at once. She cried until her chest hurt and her eyes were swollen. Then she lay down on that clean bed and slept for 12 hours straight. When she woke up, it was late afternoon. Someone had left a bag outside her door with basic supplies: soap, shampoo, a toothbrush, a towel. Riley took the longest shower of her life, standing under the hot water until her skin turned pink. She washed her hair 3 times. When she finally got out and looked in the mirror, she almost didn't recognize herself. That evening, there was a knock on her door. One of the other residents, a woman named Trinity, who looked about 25, poked her head in. "Hey," Trinity said. "Group of us are making dinner. You hungry?" Riley followed her to the kitchen, where 3 other women were cooking pasta and heating up sauce. They made space for her at the counter, handed her a knife and some vegetables to chop. Nobody asked her story. Nobody made her feel weird or broken. They just included her, like it was the most natural thing in the world. Later, back in her room, Riley found Daniel's business card in her backpack. He'd written his cell phone number on the back. She stared at it for a long time before finally using the phone that Karen had given her to call him. "Riley?" he answered on the second ring. "How are you settling in?" "It's good," she said. "Really good. I just wanted to say thank you." "You don't need to thank me," Daniel said. "But you're welcome. Listen, I know this is all happening fast, but I wanted to run something by you. How do you feel about visiting my office tomorrow? Just to see the space, meet a few people. No pressure." Riley's stomach twisted with nerves. "Okay, what time?" "How about 10? I'll text you the address." She couldn't sleep that night either, but for different reasons. She was scared, sure. Terrified, actually. But underneath the fear was something she hadn't felt in a long time. Hope. The next morning, Riley put on the best clothes she had. They were still pretty worn, but they were clean. She'd washed them in the sink the night before and hung them to dry. Trinity saw her getting ready and offered her a cardigan to wear over her thin shirt. "Knock 'em dead," Trinity said with a grin. The architecture firm was in a modern building downtown, all glass and steel. Riley felt out of place the moment she walked in. Everyone looked so professional, so put together. She almost turned around and left. But then Daniel appeared in the lobby wearing jeans and a casual button-up shirt. "Riley, hey, come on up." The office was an open space filled with drafting tables, computer screens, and architectural models. People were scattered around working, some on computers, others sketching by hand. It was creative chaos, and Riley felt something shift inside her. This was a place where people made things, built things, brought ideas to life. This is the main studio, Daniel explained. We've got about 15 people on staff. Mix of architects, designers, and drafters. Everyone works together. He introduced her to a few people. They were friendly but busy, giving her quick hellos before returning to their work. Nobody seemed to care that she looked different or that her clothes didn't match theirs. Daniel led her to a quiet corner where an older man was working on a hand sketch. "This is Victor," Daniel said. "He's been with us for 20 years. Refuses to do everything on computer." Victor looked up and chuckled. "Guilty. You must be the artist Daniel told me about." Riley blushed. "I don't know if I'm an artist. I just draw." "Same thing," Victor said. He gestured to the sketch in front of him. "This is a preliminary design for a community center. What do you see when you look at it?" Riley studied the drawing. It was good, technically perfect. But something felt off. "The entrance feels wrong," she said hesitantly. "Like it's not welcoming. Maybe if the doors were wider? And if there was some kind of overhang or covering so people wouldn't feel so exposed walking in?" Victor's eyebrows shot up. He looked at Daniel, then back at Riley. "That's exactly what I've been struggling with all morning. The client said something felt unwelcoming, but I couldn't put my finger on it." He grabbed a pencil and made some quick adjustments based on Riley's suggestions. The change was subtle but significant. The building suddenly felt more approachable. "You've got a good eye," Victor said. "Natural instinct for how people interact with space." Riley felt a warmth spread through her chest. Real praise. Not pity, not charity. Someone respecting her opinion. Daniel showed her the rest of the office, explaining different projects, pointing out various tools and techniques. Then they went to his private office, a glass-walled space with a view of the city. "Here's what I'm thinking," Daniel said once they sat down. "We start you with basic tasks. Filing, organizing drawings, running errands. While you're doing that, I'll have Victor and some others teach you proper drafting techniques. We'll get you set up with software training. You'll attend our team meetings, learn how we approach projects." He paused, looking at her seriously. "The pay won't be great at first, entry level, but it'll be steady. And after a few months, if things are working out, we'll talk about increasing your hours and your role." Riley's hands were shaking again, but not from cold this time. "When would I start?" "Monday if you're ready. That gives you a few days to settle in at the housing program." "What about school?" Riley asked. "I never finished high school. Got my GED, but that's it." "There's a community college 2 blocks from here," Daniel said. "They have night classes. Art, design, architecture. We can work around your schedule. Some of it might even be online." This was too much, too fast. Riley felt dizzy with the possibility of it all. "Why are you doing this?" she asked again, because she still couldn't understand it. Daniel leaned back in his chair. "You want the honest answer? Because I see something in you that reminds me of me. That hunger to create, to build something meaningful. And because the world needs more people who see things differently, who notice what others miss." He stood up and walked to the window. "Also, selfishly, I think you're going to be really good at this. And good people make my company better." Riley joined him at the window. They looked out at the city together, at all the buildings stretching toward the sky. Somewhere down there was the bookstore awning where she'd been sitting just 2 days ago. It felt like a lifetime had passed since then. "I'll work hard," Riley said quietly. "I promise. I won't let you down." "I know you won't," Daniel said. "But Riley, if you struggle, if you need help, if this gets overwhelming, you tell me. This isn't about perfection. It's about growth, deal?" Riley nodded, not trusting her voice. On the way out, Victor stopped her. "Hey," he said, "do me a favor. Keep drawing. Not just the technical stuff we'll teach you. Keep doing what you do. That perspective, that way you see things, don't lose that." Walking back to the housing program, Riley felt like she was floating. She stopped at a small art supply store and used the last few dollars Karen had given her to buy a new pencil. Just one, but it was a nice one, sharp and unused. That night she sat at her desk and opened her old sketchbook. She flipped past all the drawings of survival, of cold days and hard nights. Then she turned to a blank page and started drawing her future. Riley's alarm went off at 6:30 on Monday morning. Her first day of work. She'd been awake since 5, staring at the ceiling, her stomach doing flips. She got dressed in clothes that Karen had helped her pick out from the donation closet. Black pants that actually fit, a blue shirt that looked professional, shoes that didn't have holes. She looked in the mirror and barely recognized herself. Trinity caught her in the hallway. "You got this," she said, giving Riley's shoulder a squeeze. "Just breathe." The bus ride downtown felt endless. Riley watched the city wake up through the window. People heading to work, opening shops, grabbing coffee. She was one of them now. Someone with somewhere to be, someone who mattered. But when she walked into the office building, the fear hit her hard. What if she messed up? What if she was too slow, too stupid, too broken to do this? What if everyone realized she didn't belong here? Daniel met her in the lobby holding 2 cups of coffee. "Thought you might need this," he said, handing her one. "First days are always rough. You're going to be fine." The morning started simple. Daniel showed her the filing system, explained how they organize project documents, taught her how to use the copy machine, basic stuff that made her feel a little less panicked. She could do this. File papers, make copies easy. But then people started arriving and the office came alive with activity. Phones ringing, printers humming, conversations about deadlines and clients. Riley tried to stay out of the way, focusing on her tasks in the corner where Daniel had set up a small workspace for her. Around 10, a woman in an expensive suit walked in. She had that look, the one that said she was important and knew it. She went straight to Daniel's office and Riley could hear raised voices through the glass walls. Victor appeared beside her desk. "Don't worry about that," he said quietly. "Clients unhappy with some changes. Happens all the time." An hour later, Daniel called Riley into his office. The woman was gone, but he looked tired. "I need a favor," he said. "Mrs. Chen wants to see 3 different entrance designs for her restaurant project by tomorrow morning. I know you just started, but would you be willing to stay late and help Victor sketch some options?" Riley nodded immediately. "Of course. Whatever you need." That afternoon, she sat next to Victor at his drafting table. He showed her proper technique, how to use the tools, how to think about scale and proportion. But he also listened when she suggested ideas, incorporated her thoughts into the sketches. "You're picking this up fast," Victor said around 7 that evening. They were the last ones in the office. "Took me months to understand spatial relationships the way you do naturally. I just think about how I'd want to walk into a place," Riley said. "Like if I saw this building on the street, would it make me want to go inside?" Victor smiled. "That's exactly what architecture should be. Not just pretty buildings, but spaces that speak to people." They finished the sketches around 9. Riley's hand was cramping, her eyes were tired, but she felt good. Really good. She'd contributed something real. The next few weeks fell into a rhythm. Riley worked during the day, took an online class at night, studied whenever she could. She learned software programs that seemed impossible at first. She sat in on client meetings, taking notes and watching how Daniel presented ideas. She ran errands, organized files, and slowly started taking on more complex tasks. But it wasn't easy. Some mornings she woke up in her room and panicked, forgetting for a moment where she was. Old habits died hard. She still checked for exits wherever she went. Still felt nervous around strangers. Still sometimes wanted to grab her backpack and run. And the work was harder than she'd expected. She made mistakes. Misfiled important documents. Accidentally deleted someone's computer file. Showed up late one day because the bus broke down and she didn't know who to call. The worst day came about a month in. Riley had been working on a simple floor plan, something Daniel said would be easy practice. But she couldn't get the measurements right. She kept making errors, having to start over. By the afternoon, she was close to tears. One of the junior architects, a guy named Brett, walked by her desk. "Still working on that?" he said, not unkindly. "That's like a 2-hour project." Riley felt her face burn. "I know, I'm sorry. I'll figure it out." Brett looked at her screen and sighed. "You're overthinking it. Here, let me show you." He pulled up a chair and walked her through it, pointing out where she was getting confused. 20 minutes later, the floor plan was done. "Thanks," Riley mumbled, feeling stupid. "Hey," Brett said. "We all struggle at first. I spent my first week here printing everything upside down. Don't be so hard on yourself." But Riley was hard on herself. That night, she stayed late again, practicing floor plans until she could do them in her sleep. She couldn't afford to be slow. Couldn't afford to be the weak link. Daniel had given her this chance, and she had to prove she deserved it. The next morning, she found a note on her desk from Daniel. "My office when you get a chance." Her stomach dropped. This was it. He was going to tell her it wasn't working out. That she wasn't cut out for this. She'd tried so hard, but it wasn't enough. She knocked on his door, her hands shaking. "Come in," Daniel called. He was looking at his computer, but turned when she entered. "Close the door and sit down." Riley sat, preparing herself for the inevitable. "Victor tells me you've been staying until 10 or 11 most nights," Daniel said. "Is that true?" Riley nodded. "I just want to get better. Learn faster." Daniel leaned back in his chair. "Riley, I need you to hear something. You're doing great. Better than great, actually. But you're going to burn out if you keep pushing this hard." "I'm not tired," Riley lied. "Yes, you are," Daniel said gently. "I see it. Everyone sees it. You're running on fumes trying to prove something that you don't need to prove." "I have to work harder than everyone else," Riley said, her voice cracking. "I'm starting from behind. I don't have the education they have, the experience. If I don't push myself, you'll break," Daniel interrupted. "And that won't help anyone. Not you, not us, not the work." He pulled out a folder and opened it. Inside were some of Riley's sketches from the past few weeks. Practice drawings, concept work, random ideas she'd been developing. "Look at these," Daniel said. "Really look at them. You have something special, Riley, but talent isn't enough. You need balance. You need rest. You need to take care of yourself." Riley stared at her drawings, feeling tears build behind her eyes. "I'm assigning you a mentor," Daniel continued. "Victor's agreed to work with you twice a week, proper training sessions. But I'm also setting a rule. No more than 8-hour days until you're more established. You need time for school, for yourself, for life. But no buts," Daniel said firmly. "This is how we succeed here. Not by working ourselves to death, but by working smart. By growing sustainably. Deal?" Riley wiped at her eyes. "Deal." Over the next month, things got easier. Not because the work got simpler, but because Riley stopped trying to be perfect. She asked questions when she was confused. She admitted when she didn't know something. She took breaks, went to her classes, even started drawing for fun again. Victor's mentoring sessions became the highlight of her week. He taught her not just technical skills, but how to think like a designer, how to see problems and possibilities, how to trust her instincts while also learning the rules. One Tuesday, Daniel called her into a client meeting. "Just observe," he told her. "Take notes if you want." The clients were a young couple who wanted to renovate their home. They'd been explaining what they wanted for 20 minutes, but something wasn't clicking. Daniel kept sketching ideas, and they kept saying, "Not quite right." Riley watched, thinking about the problem. Finally, she couldn't help herself. "Can I ask something?" she said quietly. Everyone turned to look at her. The couple nodded. "You keep talking about wanting more light," Riley said, "but you also want privacy from the neighbors. What if instead of bigger windows, we changed where the windows are? Put them higher up or in different walls. That way you get light without feeling exposed." The wife's face lit up. "Yes, that's exactly what we want." Daniel smiled at Riley, then started sketching the new concept. The meeting ended with happy clients and a clear direction forward. After they left, Daniel turned to Riley. "That was good thinking. Really good." "I hope it was okay that I spoke up," Riley said nervously. "More than okay," Daniel said. "That's exactly what I want you to do. You see things others miss. That's valuable." That evening, Riley sat in her room at the housing program and took stock of where she was. 2 months ago, she'd been sleeping on the street. Now she had a job, a room, a future taking shape. She'd enrolled in 3 college classes for the spring semester. She'd saved almost $1,000. She had coworkers who knew her name and clients who listened to her ideas. It wasn't perfect. She still had nightmares sometimes, still felt out of place in nice restaurants or stores, still caught herself planning escape routes and hiding spots out of habit. But she was here. She was building something. And for the first time in her life, Riley believed she might actually make it. 2 years changed everything. Riley stood in front of a small gallery space downtown, staring at the banner hanging above the door. "Art from the Streets, Stories of Resilience." Her name was on that banner. Her artwork was inside those walls. She still couldn't quite believe it was real. "You coming in, or are you going to stand out here all day?" Trinity called from the doorway. She'd driven over to help set up, even though she'd moved into her own apartment 6 months ago. Inside, Riley's drawings and paintings covered the white walls. Street scenes she'd sketched during those cold months. Portraits of people she'd met on the streets. Architectural designs from her work at Daniel's firm. And new pieces. ones she'd created in the art classes she'd been taking at the community college. The gallery coordinator, a woman named Ms. Peterson, walked over with a clipboard. "We're expecting about 100 people tonight," she said. "Local press, some collectors, community members. Are you nervous?" "Terrified," Riley admitted. Ms. Peterson smiled. "Good, that means you care. Just remember, every piece here tells your story. Let the work speak for itself." By 6 o'clock, people started arriving. Riley recognized some faces. Karen from the housing program, Victor and several people from work, some of her professors from college, and Daniel, who'd shown up early and had been quietly looking at every single piece. He stopped in front of one drawing in particular. It was the sketch Riley had been working on that cold day 2 years ago, the one she'd been drawing when Daniel first saw her. She'd kept it even though the paper was wrinkled and stained. "This is where it started," Daniel said when Riley joined him. "Yeah," she said softly. "Feels like a lifetime ago." "You've come a long way," he said. "But you know what? The talent was always there. I just helped you see it." A couple approached, asking Riley about one of her architectural pieces. Then another person had questions. Then a reporter wanted to interview her. Before she knew it, Riley was surrounded by people who actually cared about her work. The most surprising moment came when a young guy, maybe 19 or 20, waited until the crowd thinned out. He had a backpack that looked familiar, worn and overstuffed. His clothes were clean but old. Riley recognized the look immediately. "These are really good," he said quietly, gesturing to her street sketches. "You really get it. What it's like out there." "Thanks," Riley said. Then, taking a chance, she asked, "Where are you staying?" He shifted uncomfortably. "Around, here and there." Riley knew exactly what that meant. She reached into her pocket and pulled out a card for the housing program. On the back, she wrote her phone number. "This place helped me," she said, handing it to him. "They're good people. And if you need someone to talk to, or if you run into trouble getting in, call me. Okay?" The guy looked at the card like it might disappear. "Why would you help me?" "Because someone helped me," Riley said simply. "And because I know how hard it is to ask." He nodded slowly and tucked the card into his pocket. "I'm Chris. Riley, you an artist too?" Chris pulled out a battered notebook from his backpack. Inside were drawings, rough but showing potential. Buildings, people, scenes from the street. Riley felt like she was looking at her own work from 2 years ago. "These are good, Chris, really good." She meant it. "You ever think about doing something with this?" "I don't know," he said. "Never seemed like something for people like me." "People like us," Riley corrected. "And yeah, it is. Trust me." They talked for a few more minutes before Chris had to leave. Riley watched him go, hoping he'd call, hoping he'd take that first step. She knew she couldn't save everyone, but maybe she could help one person, the way Daniel had helped her. The gallery show ran for 3 weeks. Riley sold 5 pieces. It wasn't enough to quit her day job or anything dramatic like that. But it meant something. It meant people valued her work enough to pay for it, to hang it in their homes, to see worth in what she created. At work, things had evolved too. Riley wasn't filing papers and making copies anymore. She was working on real projects, contributing actual designs. Daniel had promoted her twice. She had her own desk in the main studio now, right next to Victor. The college had offered her a partial scholarship for the next year. She'd been taking classes steadily, working toward a degree in architectural design. Some days it was overwhelming, juggling work and school. But she was managing. More than managing. She'd also moved into her own studio apartment 3 months ago. It was small, just one room with a tiny kitchen and bathroom, but it was hers. She'd hung her sketches on the walls. Bought a real bed, not just a mattress on the floor. Had a coffee maker that she used every morning. Sometimes Riley still couldn't sleep. On those nights, she'd sit by her window and draw the city lights. She'd think about that bookstore awning, about those frozen mornings with nothing but a pencil and hope. It felt both close and impossibly far away. One afternoon, Riley's phone rang. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer, but something made her pick up. "Riley?" A hesitant voice. "It's Chris from the gallery." "Hey," Riley said, surprised.
"How are you?"
"I'm at that place you told me about. The housing program. They said they have space, but I need a reference. Someone who knows me. I know we just met, but..." "I'll call them right now," Riley interrupted. "Give me 10 minutes. She called Karen immediately, explaining the situation. Karen remembered Chris from the gallery. "If you think he's serious about getting help, we'll give him a shot," Karen said. Riley called Chris back. "You're in. Go talk to Karen at the front desk." There was silence on the other end. Then quietly, "Thank you." "Don't thank me yet," Riley said. "The hard part is just starting. But you can do this." "I know you can." 2 weeks later, Riley got another call from Chris. He'd started working at a restaurant washing dishes. It wasn't glamorous, but it was steady money. He wanted to show her some new drawings he'd been working on. They met at a coffee shop, the same one where Riley and Daniel had talked that first day. Chris's new sketches were better, more confident. Riley gave him some pointers, shared what Victor had taught her about perspective and composition. "You should take a class," Riley said. "Community college has a great art program." "I don't know if I'm smart enough for college," Chris said. Riley laughed. "I didn't even finish high school on time. Got my GED while I was on the streets. If I can do college, anyone can." That spring, Riley got a letter in the mail. Official seal, fancy paper. Her hands shook as she opened it. It was from the community college. They were featuring her in their promotional materials, highlighting her as a success story. But more than that, they wanted her to speak at an event for prospective students, share her journey, inspire others who thought college wasn't for people like them. Riley read the letter 3 times, then called Daniel. "They want me to speak publicly," she said, "about everything. About being homeless, about struggling, about all of it." "What do you want to do?" Daniel asked. Riley thought about it. 2 years ago, she would have said no immediately. She would have been ashamed, would have wanted to hide that part of her past. But now? "I think I want to do it," she said. "Maybe my story can help someone." The speaking event was held in the college auditorium. Riley had prepared notes but found she didn't need them. She just talked about sleeping in the cold, about thinking she'd never amount to anything, about a stranger who stopped to look at her drawings, about second chances and hard work and the people who believed in her when she couldn't believe in herself. When she finished, the room was silent for a moment. Then someone started clapping. Then everyone was standing, applauding. Riley saw tears on some faces, saw recognition in others, people who understood what she'd been through. Afterward, at least a dozen people came up to her. Some were currently homeless and looking for resources. Others were former foster kids like her, trying to find their way. A few were just people who'd been moved by her story. Riley gave out phone numbers for the housing program, for counseling services, for scholarship information. She exchanged contact info with people who wanted to stay in touch. She felt like maybe finally she was paying forward what had been given to her. That night, Riley sat at her desk in her apartment and opened her old sketchbook. The one Mrs. Patterson had given her in 8th grade. It was falling apart now, held together with tape and memories. She flipped through the pages, seeing her journey sketched out in pencil and ink. Then she pulled out a fresh sketchbook, brand new and full of blank pages. The first page was always the hardest. So much possibility, so much pressure. Riley thought about Chris, about the people she'd met at the speaking event, about everyone still out there struggling and hoping. She thought about Daniel and Victor and Karen and Trinity and all the people who'd helped her along the way. Then she started to draw. She drew a door, wide open, light spilling out from inside. She drew hands reaching out to help someone up. She drew faces of all kinds, different backgrounds, different stories, all connected, and in the corner, small but clear, she drew a girl sitting under an awning, holding a pencil, looking up at the sky, because that girl was still part of her, would always be part of her, but she wasn't defined by that moment anymore. She was defined by every moment that came after, by every choice to keep going, to keep trying, to keep believing that things could get better. Riley smiled and kept drawing, the city lights twinkling outside her window, her future stretching out before her like a blank page waiting to be filled.